From Katu and Willamette University, this is Your Voice, Your Vote with Steve Dunn.
And welcome back to the program. K2's on your side, digging deeper into how Portland's new leaders are tackling the city's challenges. My colleague Angelica Thornton talked with Mayor Keith Wilson last week in his very first sit-down TV interview since taking office, and they covered all the big issues from homelessness and public safety to the budget crisis. Guess who's here? Angelica Thornton joins me now to talk about her conversation with the mayor. You guys covered a lot of ground, but right out of the gate, how's it going for Wilson? He's only been on the job, what, just over a month with this new form of government and everything going on?
What a job. I asked him right out of the gate, I said, why would you want this job? This is tough.
Yeah.
He says it's going well. He said it's going better than he anticipated. His team, the team that he's put together, he says they're ahead of the curve. And we talked for 40 minutes, which is, as you know, Steve, a lot of time when you're sitting down with the mayor who's super busy, who has meetings every single day. He did tell me he's been working 7 days a week, and he plans to do that at least for the first year. I said, do you plan to have any time off? He said, not the first year. This is a 24/7 job. So we talked for 40 minutes. We got into it, and we started with his background, because as you know, Wilson has a pretty interesting background, not the traditional path to City Hall. Let's talk about how you grew up, born and raised in Portland. While people have joked that you look a lot like Ted Wheeler, you are very different. You have very different backgrounds. He's the heir to a timber fortune.
Yeah.
He went to Stanford, Columbia, Harvard. You're the first person in your family to attend college, right? Portland Community College, Oregon State, the University of Portland. How do you think that childhood, that life shaped who you are today?
Oh, it's formative. But I want to go back to your first question about Ted Wheeler. Yes, we kind of look alike. In fact, I keep joking that Ted left his 3/4 zips in his closet, and I'm just continuing to wear them. So if we look alike,
he gave you his wardrobe.
If we look and dress alike, sorry about that, but it is what it is. No, there are a lot of differences.
But you come from a working class neighborhood in North Portland. So how did that help shape who you are?
Yeah, I've always been driven. I run hot. My mother and father, great people. You know, my father was an orphan. Mom never knew her father. They found each other, an incredibly strong relationship. They built an incredibly strong nucleus around our neighborhood. My father, no, my brothers graduated from high school. I did, so that's the first milestone. I put myself through college, jumped on a plane and started my career in New York City, traveled around the world, came back here because this is the best city in the world. And so I wanted to really make and stake my claim here, and succeeded from a professional standpoint. And then I firmly expect, with the city's help and my colleagues, to succeed as mayor as well. But you're right, we are very different. Both driven, but definitely hard scrabble on my part. You know, nothing really given. But if somebody did give me something, advice or opportunity, I took it. And that's what really led me to this opportunity to interview with you today.
Just to refresh people's memory, he ran for city council in 2000, and in his own words, I lost badly to Mingus Mapps. And after that, I think, I asked him, are you obsessed with ending homelessness? He said, I would call it a plan, not an obsession. But he really, really dove into what it's going to take to solve the city's biggest crisis. And as you know, that was his platform.
That was the platform. And that really, when you think about it, and you think about when he was running for office, that was it. When you thought about Keith Wilson, that's all you heard was ending unsheltered homelessness within a year. Can he still do that?
I asked him, I said, do you think that's overly ambitious? People called you crazy. And he said, no, I'm more determined now that I've been on the job in a month than I was back then. So his plan is to open a bunch of shelters across the city through nonprofits, churches, you know, organizations. And the nucleus is nighttime shelters. Why do you think night shelters are so important? I know we sort of moved away from that several years ago in the city. We didn't want to see the long lines of people waiting to get into a shelter at night. Why is it so important to bring that back?
So I've researched the last many years most of the cities in the United States, so they all have certain data points. We found that cities that relied upon or used nighttime shelters to augment their system. Keep in mind, it's not the holistic approach. It's only one of 4 parts. You need nighttime emergency shelters so nobody has to sleep on the street at night, augmented with 24-hour shelters, of which we have 3,000 of, with transitional housing and then permanent housing. Ours is missing. If you go to Boston, they have all 4. If you go to Philadelphia or Boise or Rockford, Illinois or Gulfport, Mississippi, they all have a series of those resources. We closed or defunded ours starting in 2017. We elected to do that through a philosophy. All we're doing is we're adding that back up, that very important segment, and that's going to allow us to make sure nobody has to suffer and die on the streets at night.
And you visited those cities, many of them. Is that how you came up with this plan?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So President Obama's point person for homelessness is Mark Johnston. He's helped me for years, the mayor of Boise. I've had several conversations with Mayor Landrieu in New Orleans, who went from 8,000 unsheltered down to 1,000 in 24 months. So it's just about it. These best practices are out there. Go and find the best one, shamelessly steal it, and bring it back to Portland and get going.
So that's what he did after the 2020 election that he lost. He traveled around the country, he went to Europe, came back and started his nonprofit Shelter Portland, and it's sort of like a think tank. You know, he wants to get the best minds together to solve this problem, and we were just talking, if he does, it's going to be remarkable. If he's able to pull this off. I mean, he's got the data and he did all the legwork and the research.
They're going to be talking about him throughout the country.
Yeah, people are going to be
sure.
visiting Portland to figure out how he did it. I think we're all hoping, fingers crossed, that it does work.
On his side. We're on his side in this thing. There's no question
everyone
about it.
is.
Let's talk about the city budget. There's a big hole there. Big time hole. Big problem for Wilson because now he has to come up with the next budget.
Yeah, I said this is like such a bad problem that you inherited. You know, how did this happen? I said, I know it's not your fault. You've been on the job for a couple weeks now, but how does this happen? How do we think the budget holds $27 million and it turns out to be $100 million? And he said, well, those were last year's estimates. When you factor in union contracts, when you factor in the economy right now, what's happening in the city with 12 city councilors and all the staff they have to hire, well, it ballooned. And he said we'd see some big swings. And then I said, is anything off the table? And he said, no, nothing is off the table. Katu obtained a memo that said these cuts could come from public safety, police, fire, 911. That is going to be really troubling for people to hear.
Yeah. So when first couple days, some of the counselors said, we think the entire enterprise should go through this exercise. I admire
That means every bureau?
Yep, yep. And I acknowledge their point. There's no harm in looking at where you can make something, you know, work better. So I brought the chief in as well as our public safety department and said, let's go look at it. Let's see what it would look like. Doesn't mean it's going to make that, that future budget priority. I don't know. We're going to look at it, but we still owe everybody an honest look at the entire operation, right?
Well, I said, do you know where we're bloated as far as city government, where we could cut back? And he said it's too early. They're basically going through, like you would a business, like his business, and auditing every single thing to see where they can make the cuts.
Public safety, livability, another big issue voters prioritized. What did he say about that?
I think those concerns are probably what helped him win, and he ties it back to homelessness. He was saying it's not acceptable to be walking down the street in Portland and see someone suffering on the ground, and that has ripple effects, and it impacts everyone. And you know, we're going to lose our tax base because people are going to keep leaving, and we have to stop the exodus. But he did, you know, point to some positive changes in Portland right now. We are bouncing back after the pandemic. He talked about the airport renovation, the James Beard Market coming next year, downtown redevelopment. I also asked him to give us a report card on the Portland Police Bureau from what he's experienced over the past month. The Portland Police Bureau presented its crime reduction plan a few weeks ago. More data gathering, better metrics to measure how things are going, more partnerships within government and outside of government. Do you think that the Bureau is on the right track, or do you want to see more?
I've had the great pleasure of working and now getting to know Chief Day. What an extraordinary person. His level of hopefulness, passion and desire exactly matches mine. So he's not just a cliche where he says it, he earns it. This past Sunday, because of the immigration concerns, he told me he was going to an impromptu community meeting. I said, can I go with you? We're peas in a pod. Go where that concern and chaos is. He's the right guy. So it takes a great leader to implement those changes. That's not just a piece of paper he put out. That was more of his mission to deliver to Portland. And we're going to make sure that those budget priorities are listed in my budget. We're going to move it forward, and he's going to actualize it. I will tell you, and I want Portlanders to know, we have the right person at the right time to really help the renaissance that we all want and desire.
He talks about meetings. He has a lot of meetings and he has long days. He was telling me right now he's in at least 2 budget meetings a day. And when I interviewed him, it was a Friday, and he was going to an event for Word is Bond. He has close ties to Word is Bond. I think he's on the board there. And I said, how can you keep up? Are you worried that you're not going to be able to do as much of this stuff now that you're mayor? And he said, no, I'm going to do even more. So I'm like, be careful, don't burn yourself out here. And he said, I'm still getting 8 hours of sleep.
Well, you know, it's interesting.
And then working the rest of the time.
Well, of course. You know, when we interviewed him shortly after he won for this program, and he said, you know, I work 7 days a week. And some people tell you that, and you go, yeah, whatever.
No, he clearly
this guy,
does.
You believe
he doesn't
he's on
stop
7 days a week.
Yeah, and I was, you know, I think you've experienced this with Mayor Wilson, too. Before he was elected, it's remarkable how comfortable he is already.
Yeah.
He's very candid, he's relaxed, and so, you know.
He's going to be filling in for me on the news next week.
Yeah, exactly. He's pretty good.
Hey, if viewers want to watch your entire interview with the mayor, where should they look?
We posted it on the K2 YouTube page, so subscribe to the K2 YouTube page, and you can find the link at k2.com. 40 minutes. We covered lots of stuff we didn't talk about here this morning. Some of the executive orders from the Trump administration, his reaction to that, Portland being a sanctuary city. So there's lots more content there to check out.
And we're recording this on Friday. Big plans for the weekend?
Sleep.
That's it?
Yeah, sleep.
I'm telling you, what a life you lead.
It's so exciting.
Thanks for coming on the program.
Always great to be here.
I enjoyed the interview a lot. I told you that back in the
Good. I'm glad you
newsroom,
liked it,
too.
Steve.
Back in a moment after this.